Welcome to the after sermon where we get to sit down with the communicator from the weekend. In this case, it's Michele. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I always love being with my church family.
Well, we love having you. So talk to me about the sermon that you just gave and just give us a brief synopsis.
Yeah. So we were looking at Luke 7:36-50, where Jesus has been invited to a dinner at a Pharisee's house. And everything seems relatively normal, having a dinner. And then this woman enters who is a known, quote unquote, sinner, an immoral woman. We don't know the nature of her sin. Some think she was a prostitute. Who knows? But she had a very not good reputation in that town. And she enters and falls at Jesus' feet and starts weeping and kissing his feet and wiping his feet with her hair, and then anoints him with perfume. And it completely disrupts the entire dinner. And it becomes a teaching moment between Jesus and his host, Simon the Pharisee.
Okay. I love that. Such a really deep story. And it, to me, like the first thing that popped into my head was, we say this thing, like if Jesus was right about God, about life, about the soul, then it only makes sense to rearrange our lives around what he says is true. And I was curious, like, what your thoughts would be on how does this story speak to the rearrangement of our lives?
For me personally, so whenever I'm studying for a message like this, I start reading it like a month before. Like I started reading this and really meditating on this passage, and then did my study and all of this. And I found so many different ways to apply this.
No, that's awesome.
I felt so much conviction at different points. I mean, I felt conviction in just the subtlety of Simon's pride. Like on the outside, he looked so religious, so faithful. I mean, he was a Pharisee, so that meant he was very committed to the scriptures. He knew the Bible, the Old Testament. He was very committed to following it. So he looked like a quote unquote really good, upstanding citizen. And yet beneath the surface, because Jesus could quote unquote read his thoughts, we see that there were different motives at play. And so, I mean, I felt that we're applying of, how much of my religious quote unquote performance is nothing more than a cover for my heart, right?
Yeah.
And we all have pieces of that.
Absolutely.
Right. And then I looked at the woman, and like there's ways that she completely disregarded self-preservation and her own dignity to enter this room and worship Jesus. She intentionally walked into a space where she was not wanted and where people would judge her.
And she knew that.
And she knew that.
Yeah.
But she was so compelled with gratitude and worship, she couldn't help herself. Like, and do I do that? I mean, many times my worship is very dignified. Right?
Sure.
We don't find ourselves doing anything that would make us look silly or too extreme or whatever. Like we tend to try to be so composed in our faith and worship. And at some level, okay, that's good. It's good that we're not inappropriate. But at the other level, but have I allowed my self-restraint to interfere with extravagant worship?
One of the things that I thought was really interesting that you brought up about Simon was like the whole reason that he invited Jesus over was this like curiosity of like, who is this Jesus guy? And yet like curiosity wasn't enough for him. Unpack that a little bit, how sometimes curiosity or being spiritually curious, though can be a really positive thing. It can get your foot in the door.
Yes.
But why does it stop short of transformation?
Yeah. Well, we can be curious about a lot of things, right?
Sure.
When we see a car accident alongside the highway, we slow down because we're curious. Doesn't mean we actually stop and do anything about it.
And sometimes cause more problems along the way.
Yes, exactly, right? So we're curious about a lot of things, but being curious about something, you're not really taking it in and saying, okay, what do I do with this? And so curiosity is a good step. I mean, it's a good beginning to actually be intrigued. But Jesus doesn't want, we've talked about this before. He doesn't just want fans, he wants followers because he's offering freedom and transformation. But only you can take hold of that, right? Like only you can say, I want that too. I mean, I think of Jesus when he when he asked somebody who he wanted to heal, and he said, "Do you want to be well?"
Oh, yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Curiosity isn't enough. When I had cancer, it wasn't enough for me to be curious about chemotherapy.
Sure.
Right?
No,
I
absolutely.
had to actually sit there and go, I want to be well.
Right.
And that's where we've got to decide, do I really believe that what Jesus said is true? Do I really believe who Jesus said he was is true? And if it is, then it's not enough to just explore that. Then I have to say, I want to be well.
So you also said several times during your message, you said broke is broke.
Mm-hmm.
Unpack that for us. Like, what does that mean in this context?
Yeah. Jesus told a 3-sentence story, a parable, a very short parable in the context of teaching Simon the Pharisee and the other guests about 2 debtors, one who owed 50 pieces of silver, 50 denarii, and another that owed 500. And so the idea is that the person who loaned them the money, the 50 and the 500, forgave both debts. But which one was more grateful? And the idea is that the one who had more debt to pay was more grateful. But the fact of the matter is both the person who owed a little and the person who owed a lot still had a debt they could not pay. And so broke is broke. Like if I owe a mortgage payment or if I owe an electric bill, they're not the same amount. But if I have zero money in my account, I can't pay either
way.
one. I'm broke.
Yeah.
Broke is broke.
All the adults that are listening right now just said, oh man, why'd she have to say that?
I know, right? If I don't have the money to pay the $200 bill, I'm definitely not going to have the money to pay, the $2,000 or $3,000 bill, right?
Yeah.
Broke is broke. And that's where we have to eventually come to a place that I have nothing to offer God. I have nothing to offer him other than to fall on his mercy and forgiveness.
So I think one of the really cool things about this story is you have like the overconfident Pharisee and then the woman who's completely broken. Talk to us about, I love how you touched on it. Sometimes we can obsess over our brokenness and not actually enter into forgiveness. Unpack how Jesus kind of steps into that tension.
I talked about there being 2 different obstacles to an encounter with Jesus. One is an overconfidence in our goodness. In other words, we really don't think we're that bad, so why would we need him?
Right.
The other is kind of an obsession with our badness, where we just can't get over our mistakes.
Yeah.
What those 2 things are simply 2 sides of the same coin of pride. In both cases, we're still making it all about us.
Yeah.
In both cases. This is hard, okay? So I know I'm probably stepping on toes, but I mean, it's hard for me even to accept. But it's true. When I live ruminating over my mistakes, I'm still making it all about me, right? I'm still not believing God is who he says he is. I'm still not trusting that his blood on the cross was enough. Wow. That's a whole different kind of arrogance.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's so true.
We need to not be overconfident in our goodness, but also not obsessed with our badness, because broke is broke.
There you go.
The debt has been paid. And we have to live both receiving that and then believing it. That's where transformation happens.
So then, so I write my notes down. And I have the next question is, what's the connection between forgiveness and worship? And I think you just said it. It's gratitude. From both sides.
Both sides. When we accept our indebtedness and receive the debt payments, right?
Yes.
Then that all of a sudden, now we are shifting from looking at ourselves to looking fully at the cross.
Oh my goodness.
And then all of a sudden, what choice do we have at that point but to worship? Like it just happens. That's what happened to the woman. Like that's why she couldn't stop kissing his feet and weeping and everything else, because the only response in that moment is nothing but worship. That's it.
Okay, so in the woman's case, you see her worship. Simon, the story kind of ends with Jesus just kind of like laying down this story, asking him these questions. For us today, like, what do we do with that skepticism, that curiosity that stops short of
Mm-hmm.
transformation, what is Jesus prodding us to today?
Well, I mean, it'd be really tempting in this moment for me to talk about, all the things we need to do, take these 3 steps.
Right.
Ultimately, I don't think we're able to save ourselves, right? I
Yeah.
do think that we need to be in a posture of God, give me the grace
I love that.
to experience the reality of your forgiveness. Give me the grace to comprehend and understand what you have done for me. To sit in that. Ephesians 3, I've been meditating on that the last couple of months. It talks about us experiencing the love of Christ, although it's impossible for us to understand fully.
Yeah.
But to pray for the grace of that. I've been praying. Ephesians 3 is a great section of scripture, 14 to 21, to pray. To, pray that God would give us the grace to both feel our indebtedness, how far we have strayed, but also to fully receive the forgiveness, the payment, and to live in the celebration of that. That's just an ongoing prayer. That's where formation happens.
I think that's so wise, because I think our default as humans is, okay, give me like the 3-step plan. And I think that's something that we've all been learning through Follow and this movement within Plum Creek is like, maybe it's not all about steps and what I'm doing. Maybe it's simply about presence.
And again, praying that prayer over and over again. I've been finding myself saying, God, give me the grace to be able to understand, to know, to believe. And where I'm consistently praying that prayer, so I am, quote unquote, doing something.
Right.
But the heavy lifter is God, that is going, only He can give me the grace to begin to comprehend the magnitude of God's love and forgiveness.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up, but I've got one more question. I'm not going to steal from your message, because you talked about kintsugi, right? Is that how you say it?
Kintsugi.
Okay. If you are wondering what that is, you're going to have to watch the message. But talk to me about that connection. I loved how it led us into communion. So you don't have to unpack all of the kintsugi art.
Yeah.
But like, what sparked that idea in your mind?
Yeah, well, kintsugi, many people are familiar with it, but kintsugi is an artistic form that, takes heirloom pottery, things like that, and restores them so they're usable again. And it's a tedious process, and it's a costly process. It's actually very expensive. But it made me think of the fact that, even in my own life, I've lived enough time now where I have a whole collection of mistakes. You can't live 5 decades without having quite a trail of mistakes behind you, right? And it's really easy for me to, spend time wishing I could go back and fix it and do it differently and all of that. And I can live so much in the reverse looking back. And the whole art of kintsugi is not, looking at all the broken plates, but seeing the possibility of what that brokenness can accomplish in the right hands.
I love that. Yeah, it was such a powerful connection and such a sweet metaphor for Jesus and the work that He did on the cross. So thank you for bringing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, if you want to watch the entire message that this conversation was based on, and I know you do because it's super awesome, head to our YouTube channel, or you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. That's all we have for today. Thanks so much, Michele.
Thanks, Daniel.